What's next? This is a question we're all having to ask and answer more frequently. I'm Jenny Blake, your host of the Pivot Podcast and author of Pivot, The Only Move That Matters Is Your Next One. For show notes from this episode, visit pivotmethod.com/podcast. If change is the only constant, then let's get better at it. Here we go. This week's episode is a little different than the usual. It is part of a series that I did at the inaugural Podcast Row held at Stand Up New York with James Altucher and the fantastic Podcast Row team. This was a pilot. It had never been done before. They invited a bunch of business podcasters and guests to come together and do a crazy packed day of interviews. I had back-to-back 30-minute interviews and was wondering how on earth I could possibly meet the guest, dive into the questions, and close out the interview all within 30 minutes. But somehow we made it happen. And then we did that over and over again. I was thrown into these rooms with brand new people that I didn't know much about. I got their bios maybe 1 or 2 days prior. And of course, I had some say in who I was going to interview as well, so I could make sure that they were a fit for this show. I had a total blast. It actually challenged me to think about how can I be even punchier with my questions when I have more time. Hope you enjoy this episode, and I look forward to your feedback. Hello, everybody. I'm here at Podcast Row with Chuck Petid. Chuck is the CEO of Republic Funding Portal, a leading equity crowdfunding site, and co-producer of the international television show Meet the Drapers. Republic is a very interesting company that is crowdfunding around equity and investing. So can't wait to learn more about that. Chuck's company specifically has an AI focus, not the AI you're used to hearing, but access and inclusion. Republic gives you access to new and vast pool of capital. So that's for the founders. They can raise funds from anyone, their community, customers, partners, and millions of retail investors. And then Chuck was asking me before we hit record if I am an angel investor. And I kind of laughed because I think of angel investors as having millions of dollars to throw around. But he let me know that you can invest and have equity in a company for as little as $10.
That's right.
Is that true?
Anyone could be an angel investor, anyone, anywhere, regardless of their wealth.
And that's relatively new, right? Because laws passed that allowed for VC crowdfunding, essentially?
It started with the 2012 Jobs Act, and then the license law that we operate under was effective in May of 2016, so about 3 years old.
That's what I thought. I remember it was around 2016 that this was kind of big news that came out, that instead of companies that were raising money, instead of them only being available to the millionaires and billionaires of the world, by crowdfunding, it creates a whole new level of access.
Exactly. So we've always looked at it as being not just a capital campaign, but also a marketing campaign. And there is a mountain in our logo for the reason that you climb that mountaintop and you get a screen from the top of it to let people know about the investment opportunity and your products and services.
Why would a founder do equity crowdfunding where they're distributing actual equity in the company compared to regular crowdfunding such as Kickstarter or Indiegogo?
Kickstarter, Indiegogo is a great place to launch a new product. Equity crowdfunding should be for growth capital. You're not actually going to spend that money on perks. So you actually have that capital to hire new employees, to get new systems and services, et cetera, to help grow your company to the next level.
Seth Godin said something really interesting. I believe actually it was in the Startup School podcast, it's not an active podcast. He has a Kimbo now that he does week after week, but you can go find Startup School with Seth Godin. And I think it was the first time I heard it said so clearly that if an entrepreneur is going to invest capital in their business, it should be toward assets and not toward things where you're going to spend the money and it's gone.
Right.
And I'm putting that in very rudimentary terms. Can you explain the difference?
It's along the lines of what I just talked about. Instead of actually taking in capital so you can immediately spend it and maybe have a small percentage margin profit on it, you can actually take this capital and use it to, add a new employee, find a CTO, do the things that you need to do to get to the next level, which will increase the value of the company and increase the value of the holding that you have. Now, to make that happen, you need to actually sell part of your company, which is where someone like Republic comes into play. And, you decide what or how much you're selling of the company. You decide who you're going to raise it from. Yes, it's crowdfunding, but you can direct it toward just your fans, just your clients. You can direct it toward just your 1099 employees who you're not allowed to have employee stock option plans with. There's a lot of different reasons why companies should use it. A lot of companies use it because they're actually blocked out from getting venture capital or angel investing, angel dollars. And that typically happens with female founders and minority founders. I think, our core has always been to help the underserved founder. And to date, 35% of funds have gone to a company with at least one female founder, and 25% have gone to a company with at least one minority founder.
From Republic.
From the crowd.
And how is that different? I know it's very skewed in the regular VC world, but do you know any of the stats on that?
I think if you combine those two groups, it's less than 2% of venture capital goes to minority and women founders.
That's part of the reason that I was attracted to have you on the Pivot podcast as soon as I saw that line about access and inclusion, because I know how important it is. I'm actually from Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and Palo Alto. And it's a huge issue that female and minority founders just don't even get the time of day that a lot of venture capitalists immediately associate a young white male in his 20s wearing a hoodie, and they think this guy looks like a founder just simply because of the past, basically.
Or if you went to Berkeley or Stanford, you're pretty much good to go. It's definitely changed today. And I believe the number is 73% of the campaigns that have gone through Republic have gone on to raise institutional funds. So a lot of these individuals who were unable to raise it in the first place used a crowd, were validated, got some growth capital, hit a couple milestones post-campaign, and then they were able to raise from these people who previously denied them for basically no good reason.
Right. I always find it interesting, companies and people who bootstrap, which, by the way, I have kind of a caveat now. Every time I say the word bootstrap, I do like to ask the question of what brand of boots were you born in? Like even those of us, myself included, where I say, oh yeah, I bootstrapped my business. I never took outside investors or family money, but I had every invisible privilege going for me. Like even I happened to go to high school in Palo Alto, the access, the people that I had, many people don't have. So that's my caveat around privilege for bootstrapping and that term, because I think we don't acknowledge a lot of these invisible privileges, even for founders who think that they're bootstrapping. Access to parents, a roof over their head, not having to get a job in high school and instead getting to intern wherever they felt like it. That soapbox aside, there's a difference between sort of self-funded entrepreneurs and then those who want to get outside funding, whether it's crowdsourced capital or they go straight to VC rounds. What do you think is the tipping point, and who do you recommend should actually go to a site like Republic versus those where it is better off to kind of stay lean and keep full ownership of their business?
So I think you need to be a company that has some stability. You can be early stage pre-revenue. You can just have a few fundamentals in place, whether it's just one investor or you've bootstrapped, whether it be from your own blood, sweat, and tears, or you had a family member who kind of set you up to get things going. But you do want to come in with some sort of stability and a few milestones hit, because otherwise the crowd is very sophisticated. Whether they're putting in $10 or $100,000, they want a return on investment. So they're going to actually take a solid look, and it maybe takes someone 5 minutes. It could also take them 5 days, but they're going to take a solid look at the evidence and make a decision to invest, hopefully or become a client or share it with their own network. But if you don't have something good for them to sink their teeth into, they're not going to. They won't do any of those three things. And if you don't get one of those three things, you're really missing out on crowdfunding. So you need to come to the table, to the crowd, with something viable, something stable that they can, sink their teeth into and actually want to be part of. A lot of the crowd doesn't get much, credit for being sophisticated. That's a myth that we've definitely, turned upside down with crowdfunding, is that individuals, regardless of their wealth, are sophisticated, and they're very sophisticated at investing.
You have a little smile on your face when you're telling me
I like that a lot, because a lot of people think it's very, it's a bad signal. It's a negative signal to the market if you're a company raising capital from the crowd, because it proves that you're desperate. You want to get dumb money. It's not dumb money. You're not desperate. You're actually using a resource that's going to help your company grow. And yeah, you're giving, you're raising some equity from it, or, selling some equity for it also. But I've loved seeing people be at times even more sophisticated than some of the venture capitalists and angel investors that I know that have been doing it for their whole career.
It's cool to see that thought really sparks joy. Like you can't see it because you're listening to this episode, but it's cool to see you light up around that. It makes me think, what's the operational relationship on an ongoing basis? So let's say a company now has 100 or 1,000 crowdfunders, if not more. I don't know what the average number of funders is for your platform, and I'd love to know. But then what kind of relationship? Are they kind of treated as a board of sorts, or does the founder then give updates? How does that work?
There's different investment terms they can take, whether it be straight equity, fixed income. They could do a revenue share agreement. They could do we typically use a Crowdsafe, so a simple agreement for future equity. It works, two different ways. One way is that it helps the founder keep these individuals off their cap table, which you don't need to have 400, 500, 600 people on your cap table. It can become very like burdensome operationally. It can be very costly. It can cause investors in the future not to invest in you if you have that much going on. And then on the flip side, it actually just clears the path for founders to grow their company. And you as an investor want that for your founder. You want that for your portfolio company. You want them to be focused on things that are meant to grow the company, and not like figuring out K1s on an annual basis or
what are K1s?
K1s are tax reporting documents that you get on an annual basis when you're invested in a private company.
Okay.
That's if you have straight stock in the company.
And cap table, what are the practical consequences of that? Like, those are people who...
If you're on the cap table, you're going to get a K1. If you're on the cap table, you're going to be presented with financial reporting information on an annual basis. You're most likely going to have some sort of voting power.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Right. It's capitalization table.
Yep.
Is that what that... Okay. Right, of how the company is structured, basically.
Yes.
Who owns what.
Exactly.
Yes.
For founders to raise capital, they have to consider that we were past venture capitalists, angel investors, founders ourselves. We are never going to put a founder forward so they can shoot themselves in the foot. We constantly have them on our mind. We also have an equal amount of concentration on investors because we have to protect them as part of our fiduciary responsibility. But when we do that for you and we get you, suitable for the crowd to make a potential investment, you look very professional. You're going to go out there and actually kind of, you'll tighten your ship and you'll get things really revving, and you'll present yourself in a nice fashion, in a light that you've never done it before when you do crowdfunding. There are some platforms that just basically give you the keys to the castle and say, we'll see you at the end of the day. At Republic, we take you, hand in hand from day one until the last day, and even beyond the campaign, because we look for long-term partners to work with. There really isn't a company that has gone through a campaign with us that we still don't talk to, if it's on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or monthly basis, or something like that.
That's an amazing network in itself.
For sure.
Do you know what the average number of investors is per...
I believe it's 400.
Campaign? 400.
And we've had a maximum of about 2,000. And those individuals end up being a small marketing army for you. They end up being a small a resource army for you, because you get 25 people in there. Well, they're investors, but 25 of them are attorneys and 50 of them are marketers, and 100 of them are HR people or whatever it is. You get a lot of people who are familiar with their industry. You don't need to be a gizmo or a gadget. You can be a B2B. You can be a SaaS company. You can be things that are typically thought of as being too sophisticated for investors, but they're not, because they recognize some part of your product or service that they're familiar with. It's the industry that they're in, and they want to support and make money off of things like that.
Well, this goes back to the access and inclusion for both founders and investors. What I love is that you're allowing access to capital for more than the pool that is currently typically served in the VC world and angel investing world. But then also it's really amazing that investors, or micro investors, as probably me and many Pivot podcast listeners would be, we also get access. We also get to say, you know what, I want to support these types of founders or these types of businesses.
You can invest in you can invest in tomorrow today. You get to pick the things that you want to see succeed. And it adds up when you're putting in $50 here and there, but 400 or 500 other people are. That's real growth capital that these companies can use to take themselves to the next level, and that you hope ends up being something that goes on and on forever.
I still am wondering who is not a fit for raising equity crowdfunding, not just or even raising equity at all. Are there people where you would recommend, you would say, actually don't. You can scale your business without outside funding and therefore sharing ownership of the business?
No, there's definitely some companies that aren't scalable. You see them come across. They're almost like lifestyle businesses. They're going to
Yeah.
have a great career. They're going to make $250,000 a year on their own, but it's not going to actually scale or be some sort of asset that can be transferred, acquired, et cetera,
Right.
to give
And maybe
an
they
exit
don't
to the
even want to
investor.
scale. They like
Right.
having it run around themselves in their
Exactly.
business. Yeah.
So you do see some, from time to time, you'll see a company that's in great shape, but you're like, you know what, that's not really investable on any level.
Yeah, you just mentioned they're not. I read a book long ago. Actually, I don't think I finished it, but I should have. It's called Built to Sell.
Yep.
And you raise an interesting point that maybe a lifestyle business is not transferable. That if the person at the center of it were to leave,
Yeah.
the
PR
business
firms would
couldn't
be one.
continue.
They need capital, but they're not going to be a sellable asset later on.
Why is that?
The individual that you mentioned, the one person that is, the head of it, that has the relationships, that, basically is the lifeblood of the company. Once they leave, that key man risk can absolutely kill all investors.
Yeah, I think about this question a lot for what I'm doing. And I think if I died tomorrow, which I'm sorry to be cryptic, everybody, but just, got to think about it. Been in business 8 years. And I'm like a hybrid of what you're describing because I do think about it. I'm like, if I died tomorrow, would everything just grind to a halt and it would all get shut down? Or would I want the business to continue? And anyone could come in and run Pivot and have pivot coaching. And I'm often torn on this front. But I think it's an interesting question of maybe you can even shed some light on how you build to sell if you are a hybrid type business where it does the founder is a huge part of it.
You need to have a partner that's just as passionate as you are. You need to have potentially a co-founder that's going to be working side by side with you. And that would carry the torch if something like that were to happen.
Also, let's just knock on wood. Hopefully I won't.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we got to get this podcast out.
And it's also not a bad thing to have some, junior members or new industry individuals on your team who could carry the torch for you as well.
And it seems as well systems and kind of building with this in mind.
you have
And
to teach
again,
people.
let's not, if we pull it back from the brink of death, maybe it's also just the founder is ready to move on. And what would that look like? Are you building something that you could transfer or would want to transfer, or would you rather shut it down?
Yeah, I mean,
You're
tough
smiling.
decisions to make.
Yeah, these are, I like.
I guess I've typically been around companies and even startups that have multiple layers of management or ownership or, things that will continue the company if something like that were to happen.
Yes.
Maybe the one that I really don't have that on is, you mentioned before, I'm co-producer of an international television show, which sounds completely insane.
Yes, which just says somehow I'm the co-producer.
So I wrote that then because
I know,
somehow,
that's what I was curious about.
I wrote that exactly.
This exact somehow I'm curious about.
And we're going into season 3 right now. So we've had 26 episodes so far. We'll have
Is
13
it a
more
web
episodes.
series or is it on a network?
It's
somewhere?
on Sony Entertainment Television.
Okay.
And it goes to the US, and then Sony Entertainment Television does, and Sony International goes to 100 and some other countries, and then Sony Live is India and South Asia. So it goes across all 3 of those entities. And the show is basically founders come on and they pitch Tim Draper and his dad, Bill Draper, and then some of Tim's, either his son or his daughter. So you meet the Drapers and they ask them questions, and then the founder leaves the room.
And just for the uninformed, Tim Draper is
I would say he's a top 10 venture capitalist in the world.
great.
His dad definitely was at some point too, but he's essentially
Jesse
retired.
Draper. I'm familiar with his daughter.
Jessie is Tim's daughter.
Yes,
So
who
she's been
also
on the
has her
show.
own podcast.
Yeah, she's been on the show probably a good dozen times. But so they pitch them, and then afterwards the founder leaves, and the family talks about it and amongst themselves. And then at the end of the day, they say, "Hey, viewers, you go to Republic and you can invest in this company. Like, this is what we think. Go to Republic, invest if you want to. If you don't want to, maybe buy their products and services. If you don't want to do that, wait till the next one."
How does their vibe differ from Shark Tank?
Well, it's a family vibe. They're very goofy, and they have a lot of rapport going on that Shark Tank doesn't have going on.
Right.
They
Shark
get-
Tank kind of cultivates the adversarial nature of
Yeah, no adversarial
discussion.
nature for sure. They're very goofy together. They're very loving, so they play off each other's energy, and it has a totally different vibe to it.
I got really lucky. I once hosted the South by Southwest social media lounge, and the Nolan family came in. So the Bushnell family came in. The Nolan family. Nolan Bushnell created Atari. And then his two sons, Brent Bushnell is one, and I'm forgetting the other son's name, but these guys were incredible. Like, just what is in the water. Nolan Bushnell also created the Atari platform and Chuck E. Cheese for anyone was born in the 80s and grew up going to Chuck E. Cheese. And this family was so fun because entrepreneurship and creativity and gaming and gamifying life was just in the water at their house.
Competitive too, I'm sure.
Probably. Yeah. Yep. Because there's more kids than just them. They're always inventing things.
Yeah, it's super fun stuff. So like, that's what happens in entrepreneurial life, though. You have to expect, and I say somehow I became co-producer. I did. I fell ass backwards into this just through the regular course of business.
How?
So the producer of the show had actually a good 7-year run with a television show on Sony, and it ran its course, and she became a founder and had her own business, and she applied to Raise and Republic. And at that time, there was only about 5 of us. And one of the things that we always wanted to do was if we were going to reject a company, we wanted to give, as many as we could, good reason and feedback, et cetera. So I offered her feedback, and she had a phone call with me. She was really grateful for it. And about a month later, she reached out and said, hey, I talked to Tim Draper. And, Draper also rejected me. But he said, why don't you take your producer skills and help me create this new TV show I want to do? And I want to have it do with, there'll be some crowdfunding component to it. Do you know anyone crowdfunding? She's like, yeah, I know Chuck and Republic. So she reached out. And then a week later, we were talking to Tim Draper. A month later, we were doing the pilot. And then 2 months after that, we were, in the midst of a week-long session of filming 13 episodes. And it was off and, we're off and running.
Amazing.
Now season 3 starts in September. Well, season 3 is filmed in September, and the first episode of season 3 comes out in November.
Is it also on YouTube and or podcast channels?
So it is still just Sony at this very moment. There is a second well-known distributor who's going to come in, and it'll go into a lot more media outlets or media mediums than just media mediums than just television. So.
Great.
Hopefully this year will be cool. And founders get a lot of exposure. They get great content at the end of the day. Yeah, the Drapers do put in about $1 million across the different episodes. But even if they don't invest, where else can you get that much exposure and that much great content to talk about what you do and what you're building?
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to check it out. Yeah. As we start to wrap up, what are 3 pieces of advice that you would give to a company who is preparing for a round on Republic?
So engage your audience sooner than later. Actually start to, technically it's not legal for you to go out and test the waters and you say, I'm going to run a Republic equity crowdfunding campaign before you file your regulatory documents. But you can have discussions with your fans and your friends and family. You can definitely have very detailed discussions with anyone who's an investor that has information rights. You kind of want to gauge to get a feeling for are they going to support me? Because you need that initial momentum to make things great throughout the campaign.
Sweet. Real quick. What do you mean? They can't say I'm about to do a crowdfunding round?
No, it's not until you actually file your Form C, which is the regulatory filing.
Good to know. I wouldn't have known that.
There are some shortcuts to that we help you with that will actually, file the Form C early so that you can go out and then legally talk about it. But you basically don't want to get onto Twitter or Facebook and say, hey, I'm going to do a campaign until you have that document.
Why is
filed.
that?
It's called testing the waters. It's an old 1933 Securities Act law.
Huh. Okay. All right. It's so counterintuitive to all other social media advice. Yeah. That's really funny. Okay. That's one.
One would be kind of prime the pump, be ready to hit the ground running. 2 would be, start building out different content plays. We're going to help you. We have the television show. We have a radio show in Chicago. We have podcasters that bring our founders on. There's press, there's live events, et cetera. You're going to get a lot of content from us that we help create. You should also start making new content. And the reason is that that's a great reason to go back out to your network. And it's another touch point that you can have with your potential investors and that we also have with our investor base. So we have 250,000 registered investors, and it takes 3 to 4 touch points for someone to invest. And that could be it's the same numbers also for your mom. She's not going to invest in the first time you send her an email. It's going to be the 3rd or 4th time. It's very strange.
That's true. My mom joined Patreon.
It takes a while.
One day I just saw my mom come through as a contributor. It was maybe 6 months in or something. I was so happy.
Yeah,
I've since paused my Patreon.
Expect it to take a while, but
great.
Thanks, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
You're going to have content. You're going to have a good reason to reach out to people. You also get you'll have a chance to put yourself into a new light. And then 3rd, I'd say, be ready to commit. And also understand that we know you have a life, you have a business you're building. It's not a 24/7 thing. You're going to have some lulls. You're going to have some time off during the actual, campaign window. But when you're doing it, be ready to commit and like push the pedal to the metal. So the more that people do those three things, the better they do.
Awesome. Chuck, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Where can people find you if they want to keep in touch and or become an angel investor?
And I hope everyone becomes an angel investor, yourself included, Jenny. I think
all right.
You're due. I'll monitor and see what happens, but I can't give you advice, but I'll watch it to see if you do. Go to republic.co.
I'm into it, but I'm not an investment advisor, whatever the legal disclaimer is.
So republic.co or chuck@republic.co. I do reply to all emails.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, we're going to have to do another episode on how you reply to all emails.
I'm inbox zero. No matter what.
How many hours are you on email every day then?
I get a lot of flack for being on my devices.
All day?
Clearing them out. Yes. I can't stand it. It's a pet. It's like a nervous.
I think there are two types of people in this world. Inbox zero, where you just have to do it.
Yep.
And then inbox overwhelmed, where it doesn't matter how much time I spend. I'm just still overwhelmed.
Maybe the greatest thing ever was when Apple started putting that unsubscribe now little upper at the top. It is click that when you get some random email. But actual people emailing me, I do email back.
That's amazing. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Chuck. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Pivot Podcast. Make sure you don't miss an episode or my insider tips and templates by signing up for Pivot List, a curated twice-monthly newsletter where I share the inside scoop on what I'm reading, watching, listening to, and the latest tools I'm geeking out on. Sign up at pivotmethod.com/pivotlist. Get show notes from this episode at pivotmethod.com/podcast and connect with me on Twitter at Jenny_Blake. Remember, build first, then your courage will follow. Hasn't it always?